Hey friends, Ben here with Business for Unicorns, and today I'm honored to be interviewing Wendy, who's the owner of Vero Strength and Conditioning and a supplement company, Cirrus Performance, on all things SOPs. And we dive into where to start with SOPs, different types of SOPs, and most importantly, how to get your entire team to follow them consistently so you have a consistent experience for your clients. So if you want to either level up your SOPs or you're looking to get started, this is for you. Enjoy. Hey friends, Ben here with Business for Unicorns, and it is my pleasure to be interviewing Wendy, all things SOPs. And this is hilarious. We were just laughing about it before we hit record, that I'm usually the SOP guy. And I am so excited to talk to somebody else about how they approach SOPs in their gym and what you can learn from it. But before we dive in, I want to remind you that Mark put out a book about a year ago. It's all of his fitness business secrets from over a decade of running Mark Fisher Fitness and Business for Unicorns. It's a great little read with great content and tons of really actionable takeaways. If you want the book, it's super cheap on Amazon. Click the link down below in the bio to get it. This is honestly the book I wish I had when I started my gym, because there's so much on marketing and sales out there, and you go down this crazy rabbit hole and you might not have 100 hours to master it. And Mark's book is everything you need and nothing you don't. All right, Wendy, let's dive in. So you are the owner of Vero Strength Conditioning, and which is, I don't mean this in a bad way, but like it's a regular brick and mortar gym, very similar to a lot of the listeners have. But you also have an e-commerce company called Cirrus Performance.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit more about that, just out of curiosity, because running a gym can be stressful, and you've chosen two completely different industries.
Yeah, and two of the most difficult industries too. So e-commerce is a grind, but we use manufacturers to create and sell supplements for high performers. So we've got one that has been tested to improve VO2 max. We've got a nootropic, a sleep supplement, some recovery with, colostrum and collagen. So yeah, always kind of expanding our line. And, we really just try to use all natural products. So no crazy fillers and not like the bodybuilding blow you up type stuff, So
yeah, there won't be any secret anabolics in these.
No. Yeah. They're third-party tested too for banned substances. So we're good.
Nice. Well, and I swear this podcast isn't just selling you on Wendy's supplement company. But you gave me one of your nootropics before I presented in Boston. And like, as a testimonial, it was awesome. I felt on point, but not like, if you chug too much coffee, you're like, it's kind of a bad thing. This was like a perfect balance of like, I'm focused, I'm attentive. Feedback is really good. So
nice.
You get 5 stars in my book.
Great.
So before we get into SOPs, I'm curious, what made you decide to start another company, and as you said, in another very challenging industry? Like, what was the reason?
Well, I mean, I had a friend that during the pandemic started mixing herbal tinctures and kind of hit on this really awesome blend that when we did an intense workout, we're like, wow, we can breathe better and push harder, recover faster between intervals. And so he was a CrossFit Games athlete and played college football, and he's in the medical device sales space. So he's, knowledgeable about that kind of stuff. And so we were just like, hey, let's do this. Let's launch. So it's the partnership is me, my husband, and Jeff Evans, our third guy. So yeah.
That's really cool. Well, I mean, and what better way to do it? You've got somebody who's knowledgeable about it. You started taking them just like kind of trial it in, and like, holy shit, this is actually good. Like, I bet people would buy it.
Yeah. And we have a testing ground at our gym. So, to get feedback.
That's cool. That's really cool. One of the perks of joining your gym.
Yep, for sure.
All right. So let's talk SOPs. And it's a topic that I feel like I've talked a little bit, but I'm, like I said, very excited to interview somebody else about it. So I guess maybe we're going to condense a lot of what you talked. Like, you talked about a lot of awesome stuff in Boston. The feedback and presentation was amazing. And like, when it comes to delivering how to do SOPs in a gym, like, maybe we can start with like, where do you start when you're approaching making SOPs that are actually followed by everybody?
Well, first of all, if you don't have SOPs, there's no shame in that, because I was in that same exact spot. I mean, when I started my gym 16 years ago, it was my husband and I, and everything was in my head. So then we started hiring, and things weren't running how I thought they should run. And so, that just became necessary. So the way, I think the first kind of chunk I tackled was I wanted a virtual assistant and I wanted to hire. So those were like the two primary areas where SOPs were needed. So in thinking of, everything I want an admin to take off my plate, wrote those SOPs, thinking, everything I wanted an employee to do, from opening and closing the gym to how to coach a class. So it's just kind of like making a master list and knocking them out.
Got it. So you made a list of what are all the things I need to teach people, and then you just tackle them
Yes.
one at a time.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, hilariously, that's also how I did it, where I'm like, there's a lot of stuff in my head. What is everything I do? It's not,
Yeah.
I don't know if this was your experience, but um, I liked it when I was done, but writing a bunch of SOPs is not exactly sexy.
It's not, but I think people overthink them a little bit. They, especially gym owners, they're a lot of times they're on the floor. They like to move around. They don't like to necessarily sit at a desk. I know that a lot of them don't like marketing. So this type of task could be excruciating if they get in their head, but there's so many different types of SOPs. And, we're visual learners. So I think in the gym setting, video is super appropriate. So imagine, you want to teach someone how to open or close a gym correctly. If you write down every step, it's just going to, your eyes are going to cross. But if you take your iPhone out and you actually videotape where every light switch is, where the kettlebells go, yada, 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 all of a sudden it took you 15 minutes to do it. And you're not sitting down at a desk just like knocking it out.
Yeah,
So,
you kind of just like you could do what you would normally do to open it and just record it. And hey,
absolutely.
now I'm going to turn on the lights here. Now I'm going to do this thing. And the SOP is super short and sweet, but it's also easy to follow because people can just retrace your footsteps.
Right. And I think that people don't realize that a lot of it's already out there. So yeah, there could be some SOPs that are, super specific to your gym. But, if you're a member of the Unicorn Society and you don't have a sales script, there's a playbook for that. You can take it and you can revise it. So all the heavy lifting was already done. I mean, that's what I did for my sales script at our gym, and it works great. There's manuals if you get new equipment, there's all kinds of stuff. So a lot of times, and even just sharing information with others in our Unicorn Society Facebook group, everybody's so great about sharing their documents or SOPs or whatever. So a lot of times it's just a matter of, hey, what else is out there, and then how can I just revise it so it works for me.
Yeah, you make a great point, and not intended to be a plug for Unicorn Society, but you want some SOPs, we provide them. Particularly one of the most important ones, which is your sales script. But regardless of the gym you're at, like opening and closing the gym is going to be mostly the same stuff. It's music, it's temperature, it's lights, it's making sure programs are out, equipment is set up. Like the nuts and bolts are all the same. None of us I mean this in the best possible way, but most of our gyms have way more in common than they actually have different.
Right. Yep. For sure. And, I think if you get like the bulk of your SOPs written, all your procedures and tasks for different positions, you're good. But the key is to communicate them and then kind of audit and see how things are going so that you can recommunicate or revise. I like to go through my SOPs every 6 to 12 months and just say, all right, has something changed? Or if I see something not going exactly how I want it to go in the gym, then I resend it out, make sure everyone's reading it. Kind of, we talk about it at our team meetings. And then, so now I'm to the point, I've got so many SOPs that I just kind of do it if I get pissed off at something, like, all right, so, I came back from Boston and a couple things didn't happen that I wanted to happen. So I'm like, you know what? I did not document this. It's on me, let me communicate it. So, you know,
Well, you bring up a really important point is like if you're starting out with SOPs and you've only got a few, but you're trying to delegate to a VA or an admin, or you're bringing on a new coach, it can feel really overwhelming to handle all those SOPs. So in addition to like setting it up as a game you can win with doing videos, not just literally typing everything out, I'd like to talk a little bit more about like how you actually roll that out to your team. Because it's one thing to have a written down or video or checklist set of expectations. It's another thing to make sure that everybody is doing the same thing the same way. So when you're rolling these out, how do you do it in a way where your team doesn't feel like you're just hitting them over the head with an SOP hammer?
Yeah, well, one, you don't want to release too many at once. So, if there's a new SOP, I have a staff meeting every week, but I also do a trainer newsletter just to, make sure everybody's on the same page with things every week. So the SOP will go in that trainer newsletter. Everyone's required to respond that, yes, they read it. And then we'll talk about it in the weekly meeting. And then, it's just kind of a matter of, are things running smoothly? I've done some class audits. We have a class coaching SOP, things like, saying people's names a certain number of times, welcoming people, telling them goodbye and thank you, moving around the gym and not being in one spot. So sometimes I'm a secret shopper and I'll, do a little audit afterwards. And if it went great, you want to make sure you praise that person, especially in public at a meeting. And then if it isn't going so great, you just get a little one-on-one 5-minute meeting and, lead with what they did wonderfully and then talk about where they need to be, where they need to make improvements.
Yeah, so it sounds like this is a perfect example of inspect what you expect. Don't just create a trainer audit and expect everyone to do it. You need to secret shop it. Or maybe you need to come in a few minutes after the gym was open to see, did they open everything properly?
Right.
There's lots of ways to just check, hey, was that done properly? And then I think what you're alluding to in terms of if they aren't doing it right, quick 5-minute meeting, is lead with what they did well and then share some set for improvement, which is very similar to our like best and next time piece we do, where it's like, here's what I like best about it. Here's what I'd like to see next time, where you're not just,
yes,
because we all know the shit sandwich doesn't actually work that well. Like,
yes,
hey, Wendy,
yes.
you did a great job, but you suck at this, but I still like you. Nobody takes that well. But if you share, here's what I like best about what you did, and here's what I'd like to see next time, like use their name twice, please do it 3 times. It makes it easier to swallow because
Right.
people are going to need to be trained and they'll need time to practice when they're changing these behaviors.
Yeah, and leading by an example is a big one too. One issue that was kind of cropping up at our gym is, by the end of the day, the people that were closing, the trainers that were closing had a lot of work to do to tidy up the gym. So now it's a requirement at the end of every shift, no matter what time of the day it is, if you're doing personal training or classes, this is the process you take to kind of sweep the gym and see what needs to be vacuumed, put back, whatever. Cause we have it cleaned professionally 3 times a week, but that's not enough to, with the daily wear and tear. So you know what, if I see something, I'll pick up a vacuum and do it myself, So I think that enforcing SOPs, leading by example is a big thing.
Yeah, that's huge. This actually happened at my gym a couple weeks or a couple months ago. For some reason, we're off of like kind of a back road and then you go into a parking lot. And for some reason there was like an old like CRT television, like the big ones that aren't flat screen, just sitting like right at the entrance. I had to dodge around it with my vehicle. And I had a moment of like, first, who the hell still has these TVs? Second, what is it doing in our parking lot? And picked up this pretty heavy TV to walk it across to the dumpster and throw it out. And then when I came into the gym, one of my coaches was like, was that a television? I was like, yeah. I'm like, did you all drive by that and just leave it there? And they're like, no, that wasn't like, they were like, no, that wasn't there. I wasn't reprimanding them, but I wasn't trying to show off that I was doing the thing, but our staff notice. And by you not being above vacuuming the floor or picking up garbage in the parking lot or just doing the things that need to be done, it creates that culture of like, we all just take care of things. Because one person can spend, if each person spends 5 minutes, it's probably good. Otherwise, one person has to spend like an hour and a half and they probably hate it.
Yeah. Even Kevin Carr's talk in Boston was he caught Mike Boyle dumpster diving, just, mashing down cardboard boxes. And, he owns this massive facility, has so much name recognition, but he's not above doing that.
Yeah. Then that comes from, Kevin was telling the story for those who weren't there, where they were trying, I guess the dumpsters is pay per load, not, so however much cardboard you can fit in the dumpster, it's the same price. And they're like, hey, we don't want to spend more on, we'd rather invest in other things other than waste removal. So they talked about crushing down the cardboard and it wasn't happening consistently. And then Kevin pulls into the parking lot and he sees Mike's head pop out of the dumpster and Mike is in the dumpster jumping on the cardboard to squish it down so that they can fit more. Yeah. That lead by example piece, that was really kind of eye-opening that like you said, Mike Boyle's like the OG of modern strength conditioning. He's got one of the most successful facilities on the planet and he'll hop in a dumpster if he needs to, man.
Yep.
That's huge. So
Hey there, Business Unicorns podcast listeners. I'm just making absolutely sure you have already gotten your free, instantly downloadable copy of my new book, The Little Book of Gym Marketing Secrets. You can find a link to download it in the show notes, or you can go to gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. I worked super hard to make sure this is a less than a 30-minute read and is a comprehensive overview of all the things you need to do to grow your gym, get more leads, more clients, and importantly, change more lives. Again, find the link in the show notes where you can download your free copy at gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. And now back to the podcast.
So I like where we're going with this because it's not just like, here's the structure of an SOP, but it's making sure that one, if you're struggling with SOPs or you don't have a lot of them, no shame. We literally all started in that point. Two, there's lots of other people in the industry, whether in Unicorn Society or not, though obviously we're a little bit biased, that you'll be able to have similar SOPs with other people. And then kind of the next point is making sure that you're leading by example as well as inspecting what you expect. You can't just put all your SOPs in a folder and expect people to nail it. You're going to have to roll out in team meetings. You said you've got an internal team newsletter. You're doing like trainer audits or checking in on things, and you're vacuuming when needed.
Right.
So any other tips for people who are either trying to level up their SOPs or only have a couple and really just need to create some?
Yeah, I mean, I like I mentioned at the beginning, I would make a priority list and then schedule out time to do it. And think about the most effective format. I mean, if you want a virtual assistant or an admin person, a lot of that information exists like in your systems where you can find how to do things. You just need to gather the information, or you can screen record yourself doing it, using the Loom plugin, which makes it super simple. But if you're hiring people, you absolutely need to have SOPs so they feel supported and want to stay there. Because if you just kind of say, all right, welcome, go coach a class, what does that mean? So,
or even like, hey, go take out the garbage, or can you clean the bathroom? Those are all things that when you delegate that thing, you have an idea in your mind of what success looks like. And if you don't share that idea of success or how to get there, like you're just setting your team up for failure. They're going to be uncomfortable and you're going to be frustrated.
And then your product or service is consistent. I used to, when we first started hiring people, every once in a while I would get the comment that if my husband or I weren't, coaching a class, it's just not the same when you guys aren't there. And I hated that. So we don't get that anymore. Every class is consistent, and that's because of training SOPs and everyone that spoke at the retreat, Chris Travis talking about hiring and Brittany talking about, different client experiences and retention, and Kevin Carr about, his coaches and regressions and progressions, and all of that. Those very impressive systems are all supported by SOPs.
Yeah, that's a really huge point. Nobody doing any big things that you see on social media or hear about whatever are just winging it. They might be winging it when they're like testing a new thing out to see, hey, does this work? But once they know they've got a pretty good formula, it has to be systemized, it has to be trained to the team, and it has to be checked in on.
Yeah. And one quick point that I made in my presentation is, not everybody's in this mindset right now, but if you ever want to sell your gym, you absolutely have to have systems. It's not going to be an attractive business to any investor or buyer if you don't have systems.
Yeah. And even if you don't want to sell your business, because I'm thinking about like 5 years ago, I'm like, I'm going to die in my gym. And now I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a personal trainer when I'm 75. It will make your life easier in the meantime. Even if your goal isn't to make more money, it's just to change lives. Like you gave a perfect example of your clients only want to have you or your husband. How do you make it consistent? You don't want to walk into a restaurant and not really know what you're going to expect.
Right. Bingo.
Well, this is fantastic. Anything else you'd like to add? I feel like we've only scraped the surface in some ways, but we've also gone in cool directions that I don't think we've talked about on the podcast for. So if you have any other closing thoughts, hit me.
I mean, we talked about written SOPs. I mean, you will need some. We've talked video video recording, but also I think sometimes just a simple sign, people don't think of that as an SOP, but like if you have a sign with a photo of how to stack the kettlebells correctly, or this is a real simple one. We had a water cooler that kept kind of like getting plugged in the water every once in a while, wouldn't flow. And so every time a member was that happened, they would grab a trainer off the floor. So all I did was make a little sign that went on the top that's like, take the top off, push the button, good to go. That's an SOP, so remind, like, that's an expert SOP. I mean, we didn't go into the two types, the learner and the expert, but yeah, just little reminders, signs like that. Those are SOPs. So like I said, don't overthink it. Just kind of find some creative ways to do them.
Brittany gave a really good example of making sure her trainers do the end of day checklist on a recent podcast, which at the end of the day, they all have to take the towels and put them in the laundry basket. And then they have to do this end of day report. It's like a quick form. And she made a sign right above the towels that all the trainers will see with a QR code that says, remember to do your end of day report. And they can just scan it with their phone. Yes. And don't underestimate the power of an appropriately placed sign, because that's where people are going to look when they're like, the water thing isn't working. What do I do? Oh, I do these 3 steps. Solved. And
you could do that with injury reports or, anything really. So, So don't overthink it. Just get it done.
Yeah. Well, honestly, there's something to that, because I get a lot of SOP questions. And one of the points I try to instill is that your SOPs are never really done. And as you said, every 6 to 12 months, you're reviewing them. There's times where things are missed. You're like, I didn't communicate that. You took ownership of it, leading by example. And it's something that is intentionally ongoing. So there's a lot of value in starting with what is the simplest approach to fix this, and only adding degrees of complexity when you're going to get degrees of benefit.
Right. And get your shitty first draft out in the world and test it. I was on a call with someone and he just didn't want to pull the trigger. I'm like, you are ready. Get it out there and then revise,
Yeah. A lot of the SOPs in my gym are like, I love this about them, but they're actually not really that impressive.
Mm-hmm. No, same.
It's a checklist on the back of the bathroom door. It's our emergency contacts are on like the front desk, where the desk, there's a little bit of wall there that clients can't see. Like our cleaning ones are in the bathroom. Like not all, like these are really simple. So dear listeners, there's nothing that me and Wendy don't know that is like this magic secret thing that we're holding back when it comes to making SOPs. It's mostly like, what's a problem that I'm seeing? I can SOP that and train my team. And then we're going to try it out and we're going to make edits as it happens. Because regardless, software is going to update, equipment's going to move around, things are going to change. You're going to have to edit no matter what. So get it to 80%, even 60%, and then make some tweaks.
Yep.
Well, this is wonderful, Wendy. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking.
Yeah, this is fun.
Giving you ask the questions about the SOP side of things that people take. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to having you back again soon.
Anytime. Thanks, Ben.
Take care.
Bye.